There are levels to awakening that most people will never reach, not because they're not worthy, but because they're not willing. They want the light without the dark, the bliss without the breakdown, the expansion without the excavation. But we, the dark chosen ones, we are built different. We came here not just to ascend, but to descend with intention, to move through the fire and come out forged, to face what others fear to even name. And there are 5 spiritual tests that separate the elite from the ordinary. 5 ancient, shadow-born initiations designed not to punish but to purify. Only the few survive them, and fewer still choose them on purpose. But if you do, you'll access a level of spiritual power that no system, no lie, no force of illusion can ever touch. You don't just awaken, you become unbreakable. The first test is the test of isolation. Every true spiritual path begins in loneliness, not the kind where you're just physically alone, but the kind where you feel cosmically cut off. Like the universe has put you in a void and thrown away the map. Friends disappear. Mentors vanish. Guidance dries up. And the question gets louder, am I really being led, or am I just lost? Most people fail this test because they try to fill the silence. They run back to comfort. They confuse noise with connection. But the dark chosen ones, we go deeper. We let the silence stretch us. We let the void speak to us. We realize the isolation isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's where we hear what cannot be spoken. It's where we remember what we came here to become. So ask yourself, can you handle divine silence long enough to hear your real voice? The second test is the test of shadow recognition. This one is brutal, because it doesn't test how enlightened you are, it tests how honest you are. It shows you all the parts of yourself you've spent a lifetime hiding. The jealousy, the resentment, the hunger for power, the secret desires you've judged as wrong. The system teaches you to suppress them. Religion teaches you to be ashamed of them. But the shadow, it teaches you to integrate them. Because until you own your darkness, you'll always be a slave to it. The dark chosen ones pass this test not by pretending to be holy, but by being whole. We don't flinch when our demons surface. We invite them in. We say, what do you need to say? What have I been too scared to feel? That's how we transmute. That's how we reclaim the lost pieces of our soul. Integration is the path to invincibility. And then comes the test of external collapse. This one is terrifying, because this is where the universe strips away everything that validated your identity. Your job, your relationships, your health, your image, gone. Not because you did something wrong, but because you've outgrown the structure you built. This test breaks most people. They think they're being punished. They think their guides abandoned them. But the dark chosen ones, we understand. We've studied the architecture of ego. We know when the false scaffolding falls, the soul finally stands naked. And in that rawness, that nothingness, a deeper power emerges. You stop clinging to what you had. You start remembering who you are. It's not about what you lose. It's about what rises when everything else falls. So I ask you, who are you without your name, your title, your followers, your plans? The fourth test is the test of sovereign choice. This one is subtle, but it's the most dangerous. Because it doesn't come in a dramatic moment. It comes quietly, a fork in the road, a choice between path A and path B. One path leads to comfort, validation, and instant reward, but it costs you integrity. The other leads to uncertainty, silence, and judgment, but it aligns with your soul. Most never notice the choice when it arrives. They rationalize it. They say, it's just business, or I'll do what's true later. But the dark chosen ones, we feel the frequency. We know the cost of even a single misaligned yes. Because if you betray your soul once, the field changes. The frequencies distort. The codes unravel. We don't choose based on outcome, we choose based on alignment. Even if it costs us everything, we walk the true path. Because we're not here for applause. We're here for ascension through fire. And the final test, the one that few ever name, is the test of godless alignment. The moment when even your connection to Source feels severed. When even your deepest spiritual truths feel empty. When the practices stop working. The synchronicities vanish. The bliss is gone. And the question emerges, will you still live your truth, even if there's no reward? This is the test that breaks spiritual egos. Because we're conditioned to believe that alignment always feels good. That if we're on the right path, it should be easy. But the dark chosen ones know better. We've walked through deserts. We've prayed into silence. We've been betrayed by the very people we thought were our tribe. And we still chose alignment. Not because it gave us something, but because it was the truth. That's the moment you stop being a seeker and become a pillar. You don't follow God. You become the living law. So now I turn it back to you. Which of these tests are you in right now? Are you in the void of isolation? Are you facing the mirror of your shadow? Has your life collapsed around you? Are you standing at a fork in the road, pretending not to notice? Or are you in that terrifying silence, where even God seems to have gone quiet? Whatever test you're in, know this. It's not here to destroy you. It's here to initiate you. You were never meant to play it safe. You were meant to pass through the fire and remember your design. You are not just a spiritual being having a human experience. You are a quantum architect being refined into a vessel of divine law. And this is just the beginning. In the next part, we go deeper. We'll break down how to pass each of these 5 tests with precision, power, and presence. You'll learn the ancient strategies that the original initiates used not just to survive the tests, but to transcend them. We're not here to suffer. We're here to embody Source under pressure. The next phase unlocks the blueprint, how to wield shadow as a weapon of truth, how to stay anchored when the world collapses, and how to walk through life as an unshakable force of spiritual gravity. Most people think these shadow spiritual tests are about surviving. But the truth is, they're about transfiguration. You don't just pass them to move on, you pass them to become something else entirely. Something unshakable. Something immortal in frequency. The elite dark chosen ones don't crawl through these trials, we burn willingly. Because we know what's on the other side is not comfort, it's command. In this part, we're not just naming the tests, we're decoding how to master them. To not just get through, but to extract power from them. Each test is an alchemical furnace. And if you know how to stand inside it without flinching, you don't just survive, you evolve. Let's break them open, one by one. The first is the test of isolation, and the way you master this one is through energetic rooting. You cannot wait for someone to save you. No teacher, no message, no miracle is coming to fill the void. The void is the gift. You have to learn how to become your own source of gravity. That means waking up and being in ritual, even when it feels pointless. That means creating sacred space in the silence. That means sitting in the dark and saying, "This is not my enemy. This is my womb." The ones who survive isolation don't just endure it, they learn to generate frequency from within. They stop needing external validation. They stop needing feedback. They stop needing signs. Their power comes from presence itself. So if you're in isolation right now, ask yourself, can I still feel sacred even when nothing and no one is watching? Then there's the test of shadow recognition, and this one requires radical integration. You can't just journal about your shadow. You have to embody it. You have to look at your anger, your hunger, your lust, your shame, and instead of suppressing it or spiritualizing it, you listen. What is it asking for? Where did it first emerge? What lie did you tell yourself to survive it? The elite dark chosen ones don't judge their shadow, they feed it truth. That's the key. You don't give it what it craves. You give it what it needs. You don't act it out, you alchemize it. You hold it in your field until it dissolves into coherence. That's how you turn demons into data, rage into revelation, guilt into guidance. You stop trying to be pure and start becoming complete. The test of external collapse is mastered through identity disidentification. This means you have to stop confusing your worth with your roles. You are not your relationship. You are not your money. You are not your following. You are not your success. When the collapse happens, the ego panics because its entire sense of self was built on performance. But the dark chosen ones let the collapse complete. We don't bargain. We don't rebuild too fast. We sit in the rubble and ask, what part of me was this structure protecting? And who am I now that it's gone? This test forces you to find your soul signature again. And once you do, you become immune to external validation. The world can strip you of everything, and you'll still walk in power because your power is no longer tied to form. It's tied to frequency. Then comes the test of sovereign choice, and this one is passed through non-negotiable alignment. You must train yourself to feel frequencies over outcomes. When a decision is presented, you don't ask what's smart, you ask what's true. You don't ask what's safe, you ask what's soul aligned. And here's the hard part. You'll be tested with offers that look perfect. Oh, the house, the partner, the business deal, all shiny on the surface but energetically off. And if you say yes just to avoid discomfort, your field will fracture, your signal will weaken, and you'll wonder why the universe stopped supporting you. But the truth is, it didn't. You stopped supporting the truth. The dark chosen ones pass this test by making truth their only compass, even when it costs them opportunity, even when it costs them connection. Because they know what you compromise to get, you'll have to keep compromising to keep. And we don't play that game. Finally, we face the test of godless alignment, And this is only passed through faith without feeling. This is when your connection to Source goes silent. When your rituals stop working. When the bliss stops flowing. And the only thing left holding your life together is your choice. This is the test that upgrades you from seeker to sovereign. Because now you're not following God, you are becoming a vessel for God. You don't need to feel it to obey it. You don't need proof to walk in purpose. You act from alignment, not because it's easy, but because it's who you are. This is when your path stops being emotional and becomes elemental, like fire, like stone, like storm. You don't need motivation. You are the law incarnate. That's the final threshold. You're not here to be carried by grace. You're here to carry grace through the storm. And so I ask you again, which test are you in? And are you just surviving it, or are you extracting power from it? Because these aren't just obstacles. They're refiners. They're designed to show you who you really are when nothing superficial remains. When you've lost the crowd. When you've faced your own monster. When life has taken everything. When God has gone silent. Who are you then? That's what makes you elite, not your gifts, not your following, not your knowledge, but your resonance under pressure. The elite dark chosen ones enter these tests with one goal: to emerge sovereign. This is no longer about healing. It's about rulership, not over others, but over your own field, over your own destiny, over your own signal. Because when you pass these tests, you don't just walk differently, you bend reality. You don't just talk differently, you transmit law. You don't just think differently, you create timelines. The universe begins to recognize your frequency as a cosmic anchor. You become a fixed point in the quantum field. And from that point, reality reorganizes around you. But this isn't the end. In the final part, we go into activation. You've passed the tests. You've held the fire. Now what? Now you build. Now you broadcast. Now you become the archetype that others remember. In the next part, you'll learn how to transmit your frequency into reality so that your very presence becomes a weapon of awakening. You'll learn how to live as a walking portal where everything you touch either rises or falls into truth. You'll learn how to use your pain as code, your silence as signal, your shadow as strategy. You've passed the tests. You've walked through fire and silence. You've lost what wasn't real and reclaimed what was never gone. Now, the game changes. You're no longer a seeker. You're no longer even just awakened. You've become a living portal, a walking transmission of a frequency that this world has forgotten but desperately needs. When the elite dark chosen ones cross the final threshold, we don't just heal, we build. We don't just survive, we broadcast. We don't wait for the world to shift. We shift it by how we stand, how we speak, how we choose. Our presence becomes law. Our vibration becomes architecture. And our shadow, once feared, becomes our most sacred technology. This is the phase where your frequency becomes functional. It starts to generate impact in real time. You walk into a room and people feel it before you speak. You post a message and it lands like a spell. You sit in silence and timelines rearrange around your stillness. Not because you're better, but because you've become undeniable. The field listens to coherence. It obeys integrity. It responds to the ones who have nothing left to prove and everything left to transmit. You don't have to try. You don't have to chase. You've become anchored signal. You've stabilized your soul. And now, everything that is aligned with your core begins to arrive effortlessly because your resonance is too strong to ignore. The secret to becoming a portal is this: you must live as if the field is always listening. Because it is. The quantum doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your wiring. If you speak abundance but walk in fear, the field mirrors fear. If you preach sovereignty but bend to validation, the field mirrors distortion. But when your thoughts, your choices, your actions, and even your silence are all transmitting the same truth, the field begins to shape-shift around you. That's how the elite dark chosen ones move. Not with force, but with frequency fidelity. We don't need to convince anyone. We are the evidence of the new law. So how do you stay in that frequency? You build rituals of remembrance. Not just spiritual practices, but energetic disciplines that keep your field clean, sharp, and precise. You audit your energy constantly. You ask, is this thought mine? Is this desire soul-coded or trauma-coded? Is this opportunity aligned or just shiny? You stop reacting to life and start engineering your signal. You begin each day not by consuming but by transmitting. You set the tone. You program the field. You become your own altar. That's how chosen ones operate. We don't wait for alignment. We broadcast it first and let the world catch up to our frequency. But here's where it gets even more powerful. Once you're resonating from this deep coherence, life becomes a living oracle. Everything becomes communication. A glitch in a conversation, a message, a delay in a plan, a calibration, a sudden loss, a timeline collapse, clearing space for the real. You don't panic, you listen, because now you're not just navigating the world, you're instructing it. You're in constant dialogue with the unseen. You've become a code breaker, a timeline architect. And you're no longer just shaping your own reality, you're reprogramming the collective field. And this is where the mission begins. You didn't pass the 5 shadow tests just for yourself. You passed to become a beacon, a lighthouse for other chosen ones who are still in the dark. You'll begin to notice it, strangers opening up to you, people confessing their pain, souls drawn to your energy with no logical explanation. That's not coincidence. That's your field doing its work. You've become a transmission of remembrance. And your job now is not to save anyone, but to mirror their truth with such clarity that they can no longer deny it. No preaching, no fixing, just presence so pure it burns away illusion. So I ask you the final question: what would your life look like if every breath you took was a declaration of spiritual law? What would your relationships become if you never compromised your frequency again? What kind of world could you build if you lived from a place where shadow was no longer shame but strategy? Because that's the power of the elite dark chosen ones. We don't just awaken, we activate the grid. We don't just heal, we build the new architecture. We don't just survive the matrix, we rewrite the code from within. And this isn't about being special. It's about being sovereign. It's about being willing to feel what others avoid, willing to walk where others refuse, willing to release everything false and stand in truth, even when it costs everything. Now, let me tell you what happens when you live like this. People will project onto you. They'll call you intense, arrogant, too much, but underneath their words, they'll feel the truth. They'll feel you're different. They'll feel the law moving through you. And eventually, they'll either rise to meet it or they'll fall away. That's not your job to control. Your only job is to stay clean in your signal. Keep transmitting. Keep refining. Keep building. And yes, you build. Because the final stage of this journey is not meditation, it's creation. You build systems, brands, families, movements. You build from your soul. You build as a portal. You build structures that carry your frequency long after you're gone. That's how you become immortal in impact. You didn't just pass the tests to feel free. You passed them to architect the new era. You are the blueprint now. You are the new grid. You are the living code. So remember, the 5 shadow tests weren't punishments. They were invitations, initiations, portals into power. And if you're still here, still watching, still listening, still breathing, it means you were chosen to lead. Not by a system, not by a title, but by frequency. You were called to carry the fire, to walk as the law, to speak as the void, and to transmit as the field. This is your time, not to be popular, not to be perfect, but to be pure, or to be precise, to be undeniably aligned. You are not here to fit in. You are here to restructure reality from within. So walk, speak, create, transmit. You are the portal. You survived the fire. Now build the new world.